Yo, what is up, guys? It's been a while since I've posted, but today's gonna be a different type of video. Today I'm gonna be showing y'all how to clean just about any type of carburetor, but I'm gonna be cleaning the carburetor in our Yamaha Grizzly 125 automatic today, and I'll also take off the carburetor on our Yamaha Warrior 350 dune buggy inside, and I'm just gonna compare the two and walk y'all through on how to clean a carburetor. Getting your carburetor out of whatever you're working on. So usually to identify your carburetor, you're going to see your exhaust pipe, and it's going to be different on a lot of these vehicles. But then here's your header and your cylinder and all of that. And then on the opposite side of where your exhaust is, there's going to be this little box here, and it's your carburetor. And ours looks pretty nasty because we've never taken the carburetor off of that. And then I'll show you it on the dune buggy. So it's basically the same thing. So you got your exhaust here, cylinder, header, and then the carburetor's here. After you've identified it, step one is to remove your fuel line. So you want to turn your fuel off, and I'll show you what on the other one what it looks like to turn the fuel off. So here's your fuel gauge. Your fuel valve here. So it's on right now. You can see the arrow right here. It's pointing to on. So you're just gonna want to twist it and turn it to off. But you want to turn your fuel off and remove your fuel line from the carburetor and secure it somewhere where it won't spill gas all over the place. The next step 2 is to disconnect your throttle cable. So to do this on this one, you're gonna have to take these screws out, or these bolts off, and then when you do that, you can disconnect it from the inside. And I'll take this off and show you that I got the cover off. The cover's right here with all the little bolts on the inside, and there's also an O-ring right here. And you want to make sure you don't lose that, because if you lose that, then your carburetor is going to leak, and that's no good. So to disconnect this, you're going to want to, let me see, okay, you're going to want to push up on the throttle body from the bottom. Oh, you can't really see, but so first off, you can see the cable running right here, and then it's connected to this little copper thing, and there's a little notch right there where you have to align the cable through to pull the little copper thing out, or a little brass thing out. That way you can pull this through. So you're gonna want to make sure you can get it up all the way, and it can be a little tricky sometimes. Just make sure it's loose, and it should come right out like that. So you just push it up, and usually it's a lot easier to do this with 2 people, but it's not that bad by yourself. So now you see that you push this little piece through, and now these two are separated, and then you can push your fuel line, your throttle cable through. So this is a very important piece. You don't want to lose it. It's kind of a pain if you lose it, because then you got to buy a new one. So now that this is off and your fuel's off, you can just disconnect your air filter, air box, whatever. So on this, it's really easy. Just pull it off, and like that. Right here is your throttle cable. So, unlike the other carburetor, to disconnect this one is very easy. Just twist it, twist right here on the silver bit, and it's gonna come right out. Super easy, nice. Oop. And here it is. The next thing is going to be loosening your studs that bolt down to the header. So I'm going to do that, and then your carburetor is going to be completely off after that. The bolts on the studs are going to vary in different sizes, but on the Yamaha Warrior, they're 14 mil. Okay, so now that you got your studs coming off, your bolt for your studs coming off, carburetor should just fall out after I finish undoing this. Oh, okay, so there's this nut here, and then there's gonna be an O-ring behind it. Oh, okay, this one stayed on. Look, the O-ring. Oh, yep, and there's gonna be gas dripping out of it. But the O-ring right here, you're gonna want to hold on to this. And then you're gonna want to put it on a surface where it's kind of neglected, because there's gonna get gas all over it. But preferably, I like to put down a couple of rolls of paper towels down and work on it like that. So rip me a couple sheets. Make sure it's nice and clean surface to work on. And yeah, so there's a couple of ways you can get the gas out of here. You can just kind of like twist it and it's gonna come out. Flip it upside down. But the easiest way is just to take the float bowl off, which is this portion here, the bottom portion. Take it off. So now, when you get all your gas out, you're gonna want to take off your float bowl. So when you're looking at it oriented in this way, spilling gas all over the place. So when you got it oriented this way, you got your throttle here, and then you're gonna have everything here. So this is the engine side, and this is your intake side. So your air's coming in this way, and then it's going inside the engine this way. So it's gonna be the bottom portion here. So when you take that off, that's when you can start cleaning everything. So all the complicated, or not really complicated, but all the moving parts of the carburetor are in here. And you're just gonna wanna keep everything nice and organized when you take everything out when you're doing this for the first time. Because if you don't really know how everything goes, then it's kind of confusing to put it back together in the right, correct orientation. So when you take this off, there's more than likely still going to be a little bit of gas left inside, but that's not a big deal. Another thing, instead of working on paper towels, is cardboard, like a cardboard box. That also works very well, because it also soaks up a lot of the gas. Okay, now, so here's the bottom of your float bowl. So they have a couple of little moving parts. So you want to, for this specific one, they have this little thing that gets compressed by the throttle. I'm not sure what it does, but I just clean it out, pump it up and down a couple of times, make sure all the gas comes out. And then they also have the overflow needle, or the overflow valve right here that goes down to your overflow. Okay, so here's where all the fun stuff starts. So you have your float, which is this here. You have your pilot jet. You have all of these other small little jets on the sides. Then you have your needle here, which is this little clip here. But I'm gonna take this out and I'm gonna show you everything under here. But there's a whole bunch of other little things that you're gonna want to clean out, like this one in here, this main jet. So you're just gonna want a little flathead, a bigger one for that one, pretty small one for that one in there, and then you're gonna want either a very small screwdriver or a pick to poke this this little pin out. That way you can get your float and your needle out, and then you can just clean everything. And I'll just show you how to basically do that. So I'm gonna get my small flathead, and I'm gonna get my pick to get that out, and then yeah. Okay, so I've got my flathead, my big flathead, and my much smaller flathead, and I've got my pick. So what you're gonna want to do with your pick is insert it here, and that's gonna pull it out, and you want to keep this right there, and this is where your float is gonna come apart, and here's your needle, and then it just clips onto this little metal piece of your float. So to put that back together, and I know we're not quite there yet, but to put that back together, you just slide this little clip in through this little gap right here, and then push it onto the little piece of metal here, just like that. So it'll basically just stay together, but if you need to replace either part, then it's not that hard to do so. Okay, so now you're just gonna want to grab your handy dandy carburetor cleaner. So literally any brand is fine, O'Reilly's, Starville, it doesn't really matter, as long as it's carburetor cleaner. So you're gonna see they're still gonna have gas in here. Not that big of a deal. Just soak it up or spray it out or dump it out, whatever you gotta do. If you're doing this to a really old nasty carburetor, you don't want any gas in here because it's really old gas more than likely. So you just want it to all be out. So now you're just gonna want to start taking your needles out. Your jets out. And you gotta be careful with these because this brass will chip if you're not careful. So drop that. Okay. Okay, so that's the two main fuel jets that we're gonna need to worry about, is these very small ones here. This big one, which is your pilot jet, went here, and this smaller one went down into this little crevice. So now what you're gonna wanna do is line it up with some light to be able to see if you can see through it at all. So as you can see a little bit of light at the end of it. So we're just gonna blow through it with the carburetor cleaner and see if that makes anything better. And you want to be careful because if this stuff gets in your eyes, it burns. Blow through the other one. And then you're going to want to get some compressed air and blow out through it. But you can see this is a big jet, so it has a big hole in it. And then this one has a much smaller hole. But you can still see that little bit of itty bitty amount of light through it. So, those are clean. Let me just double check. Yep. And usually you can see a little bit of gunk in there, but now you're just gonna want to spray everything else out inside of here, all these little jets and stuff, and that's gonna make your life a lot easier instead of just like only doing a couple of things and you put it back together and you figure out that's not what the problem is. So when you take down one of these carburetors and you get all these jets out, you're just going to want to spray you're going to want to take the ones out that you can and then spray everything else out. So you just kind of want to go a little crazy, not too crazy, but just about in every hole that you see, you want to spray carb cleaner down. And like I said, this stuff burns if it gets in your eyes, so you never want to spray like this. You always want to put your head out to the side and spray. You also want to spray through your fuel line just to make sure that's all good. And you usually want to blow through this type of stuff both ways. And then there's also going to be one on the intake side that you want to blow through. And you can see where everything comes through. That's pretty cool. So yeah, that's basically everything. Just gonna make sure there's no gunk in the bottom of our float bowl. So you're just gonna want to kind of just spray that out, dump the car cleaner out, dump it out, just spray everything. Make sure everything's nice and clean. Okay, just like that. And one more spot. Alright, so now you're just going to want to put everything back where you found it, just like how you found it. But for your big pilot needle, it came with this little washer. I'm going to put that back like that. And you do not want to over tighten these. Do not over tighten these. Just barely, I mean, you want to get it tight, but should not be a struggle whatsoever tighten these down. You do not want to over tighten them because you will never get them out. But you also don't want to under tighten them. There's a happy medium, but you do not want it to be super tight. Okay. So to put your float back in, you're going to want to align the needle with the jet here, and just kind of put it in like that. And to align this, align your holes on the float to the lines on the little carburetor, and just push it right through like that. And then after that, everything else is clean. So you're just going to want to put this back in the correct orientation. So for this one, you have this little rod right here, and you have this hole on the other side. So that's a good giveaway to where it goes. And also you have another little hole right here and a hole here. So that's another good giveaway to how this thing goes back together. So just line everything up, and like that, it's on. Now you're just going to need to put all your screws back in. Like that. And also you do not want to over tighten these because these are very easy to strip out. You also want to go in a diagonal pattern. That way everything tightens down evenly. And I'm just barely tightening these to get it down evenly. And then once I know they're all down and pretty good and snug and even down, then you can go back and tighten them some more. But like I said, you do not want to tighten these. You don't want to over tighten them because that is the worst when you strip one of these out. Okay, so everything's back together, and now you're basically good. So that should fix any of your problems that you have, and if you're still having problems, then double check and triple check that all your jets are cleaned. And there's also, you could take off this, which is where your needle is for your pilot needle. And there's some adjustment on it that I'll show you. But if your vehicle is running fine, completely ignore this. Completely skip through this because this is just unneeded information if it just needed a change and just needed a cleaning. So it's actually kind of a pain to take out. But okay, so here's a good view. So you can see your slide right here and then your needle right there. So to take this out, all you would have to do is undo these two screws right here and right there, and then you should be able to just pull it right out. So that's that, and then they have some adjustment on the top of the needle that you will be able to see. So, yep. But like I was saying, if you put your carburetor back together and see if it's running and it's not running correctly, double check that everything's clean first and then go do this, because this can really mess something up. You just want to do stuff one step at a time. You don't want to jump around too much. And this little O-ring's pretty much done. It's shot, but it's at the top of the carburetor. There's no fuel getting to this, so if you're having trouble with some of your O-rings sticking or whatever, go get yourself some grease. Go get yourself some grease like this, and you're going to want to put a tiny bit of it down on the surface that you're trying to get this O-ring to go back down on, and just spread it out a little bit. You don't want too much of this, but it doesn't really hurt if you put more or less. So now it's all kind of bent, but it'll go back on. Like that. Don't get it perfect, but it'll definitely help. Oh. It is a little bit aggravating when they are bent like this, which usually isn't the case. And this one's lined up. This one's lined up. And where's my last one? This one's lined up. But you also want to make sure there's not any junk or trash in there, because that could definitely make your throttle stick or anything like that. But that is good. This carburetor is clean, and now I just need to reinstall it back into the dune buggy, and we should be good. Okay, so now I'm going to be reconnecting our throttle cable, and this is probably one of the most difficult parts of the whole ordeal. I'm just trying to get a good view. Okay, so you got your throttle cable here. Put it back through the little sleeve, shoulder thing, and you're going to see it come out there. Okay, so now you're going to want to get that little brass piece that I was talking about earlier, and it's going to have an end like this and an end like this. So this end with the little opening goes towards the end of the little brass end right here. You're going to want to put that in like this. And now you're going to want to put it back in, you're going to want to align your cable with this little notch here. So I'm just going to lift it up like this. What's also, sometimes it's easier to put this end in this and just lift it up. Oop. And do like that. Oh, it's a little bit difficult. It's a lot easier to do with two people, but you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. Okay. Ooh. Comme ça, like that. Alright. So now it's back in. You good? And we are golden. Just make sure everything's in there correctly, and it is. So now I'm just gonna slap our little cover back on, and we will be good. Okay, so now that's on. Now you're just gonna want to hook up your fuel like that, and then you're just gonna want to slap on your air filter or air box, whatever you got, whatever you're dealing with, and then you good like that. And hook up your air crankcase breather, which you won't have to do on any other thing, just specific to this one. It's our custom idea, and then you're ready to go. And so if I left anything out, or if you have any type of questions, just leave it in the comments down below, and I'll try and answer it for you. And I should be able to, because these aren't very complicated little engine or little machines, so should be able to figure out with you. And yeah, man, just leave a like and subscribe. And I still need to go do the other thing outside. So if you want to continue watching that, then I'm going to do like a whole, like basically whole identical thing that I just did there on that outside. So yeah.